let's just get into the overview. First thoughts, I really like the album cover art. It's very spherical, it's very spacey. I have not given the lyrics the proper sitting, simply because I'm way too busy to find enough time to actually sit down and listen to this thing from front to back with the lyrics in my hand. I'm usually listening to music while I'm doing housework or driving. So unfortunately, the lyric aspect of this thing will have to go untouched. But I just wanted to give you my thoughts on each individual section. Essentially, this is two huge 18 to 23 minute pieces of music each. There's two of them. You have Objects Outlive Us as the first one, and then you have the overview itself, the title track, as the second one. But within the confines of those two huge pieces of music, you can break down the different tracks with the different names. So No Monkey's Paw being the first one. Really like the soft, slow beginning. Really like the falsetto vocals from Steven. I feel like the Monkey's Paw thing has a lot to do with the lyrical side of things. I'm not really sure where that goes. If anybody has any, if you could summarize the lyrics for me, leave it in the comments below. That would be greatly appreciated. I will eventually find the time in my crazy life to sit down and enjoy them. But for now, we're just listening to the audio. And so No Monkey's Paw is just, I love it. It's very spacey, very relaxing, absolutely wonderful track. The next little sub-track in the first one, Objects Outlive Us, is called The Buddha of the Modern Age. This one starts off with some piano, and it reminds me instantly of the Hand Cannot Erase and Raven Refused to Sing era of the band. Very progressive sounding, very melodic. The drums come in. The whole thing just kind of gradually gets more interesting as it goes. It's a wonderful track. The third track in Objects Outlive Us is called Meanwhile, which is extremely well written. It's one of the longer pieces in the bigger picture of the track here. And it starts off with what sounds like could be a B-side to Raven Refused to Sing. It's the notes being used, it's the feel and the timing, and also the sound itself that they're using for these instrument choices here. It's just absolutely wonderful. As Meanwhile progresses, the drums come in and things start to open up, and about 2/3 of the way through, you actually get a little bit of a bass solo where the bass kind of comes out front, and there's a nice effect on that. I'm assuming it's Nick Beggs on bass, as always, but absolutely cool. This song harkens back to that Raven Refused to Sing, into the Hand Cannot Erase era, that sound and feel. Unreal. I love it. The next track in Objects Outlive Us is called the Cicerones. I'm saying that wrong, guys. Forgive me. /arc. All right, you guys know what I'm talking about. Again, this one starts off with very Raven Refused to Sing meets Hand Cannot Erase vibes. Again, the notes, the tone, the instrumentation, all of it is just so reminiscent of that early 2000 to mid 2010s feel that Steven put out at the time. All the songs on Objects Outlive Us tend to start really soft, have a theme, and then just gradually expand out from there. By the end of these tracks, it's usually like a big full band kind of situation where everything's big and everything's happening at once. Very cool. Makes for very interesting ebbs and flows if you're listening to this as one track, which is a really cool idea that I would eventually have gotten to, is that, these as individual songs, they're awesome on their own, but the fact that he put them all together and called it just 2 tracks when it's more like 15 tracks is really a creative thing to do. Cosmic Sons of Toil. This one might be, if not one of my favorites, it might soon be one of my favorites. This is where we're continuing with that same progressive vibe mentioned on Raven already, 3 times. But it kind of expands and pushes the limits a little bit further. It almost sounds like we have some diminished scale work in there, especially at the halfway point. There's some solo moments. It's got some great orchestration. All the instruments sound great. It's mixed very well. Well done song. Again, I don't know what the concept behind the title is all about, but for what it's worth, sonically sounds great. Very different from the previous tracks. This portion of Objects Outlive Us is the No Ghost on the Moor, Heat Death of the Universe, which is very interesting title work, I must say. Also a long song at 6 minutes. This one starts off very slow. It's got that traditional Steven Wilson sorrow-filled vocal passage with a little bit of music underneath, and then it gradually kind of opens up into more of like a jam, which is cool. And then the end ends with that droning urgency. I don't know what sound they're using to get that. Obviously some patch on some keyboard or synthesizer. I'm assuming that's the Heat Death of the Universe sound itself. It's very unnerving, and it comes at you very slowly, and it gets gradually louder. So all in all, Objects Outlive Us is a phenomenal piece of music. I would almost say that this is better than the stuff off of Harmony Codex, right? Now, I already mentioned Impossible Tightrope and Economies of Scale. I absolutely love those songs. They would go on my Steven Wilson best of all time. But in terms of the other songs on the album, I feel like there's a little bit, for my liking, don't get butthurt here, but for my liking, there's a little too much electronica and a little too much repetition, maybe. Overall, that album is very good. It's definitely, it ranks midway. It's better than some, but also not as good as others. But I would rank this one just as good, if not better, than the Harmony Codex as of right now. So, but we still have the other track to get into. So let's shift our way into the overview itself. The overview starts off with a track called Perspective. Okay? And this is where the electronica stuff kind of comes in. So the first track was more about like the prog and the fusion-y type sounds with less electronic stuff. This is more about electronic stuff. And I'm not a huge fan of the electronic stuff. As a rule, it's my least favorite aspect of what Steven Wilson does. But by all means, obviously, we all love and respect anything this guy comes out with. Even the albums that aren't my favorite are still good. Okay? So, with that said, above this electronic landscape, there's a woman talking in mathematical equations and or astronomical or astrological coordinates, whatever it happens to be. I don't know if it's made up or if it's real. Again, I didn't do any backstory on this album and I haven't read the lyrics, so forgive me. But I don't really care for this song. It's 5 minutes long, and it's just like, as you're listening to it, it's like, is it going to be over soon? This would have been better without the vocals altogether, or just made shorter. I feel like it's just way too long. All right, the next track on the overview is called A Beautiful Infinity, Borrowed Atoms. This one starts off with, it almost has, initially it has that like Steven Wilson pop feel from like the Future Bites. And then there's like a little bit of what sounds like a slide guitar that almost gives it like a country vibe for like a half a second. And then he gets into the vocals and there's a little bit of an effect on his voice. It might be a little reverb or something. And it almost has like a Beatles kind of feel to it. So far I like this track, but let's just check it out a little bit further. Overall, A Beautiful Infinity, Borrowed Atoms is a really good track, kind of molding, you know, the older feel of Steven Wilson around Raven with the newer like Future Bites with a little bit of an electronic feel and almost a country vibe in a way. The vocal quality gives me like a Beatles type vibe. All in all, a great song, way better than the first portion called Perspective, right? Way better than that. Next track called Infinity Measured in Moments. By the way, what a freaking amazing title. Infinity Measured in Moments. I mean, you could think about that all day long and take it to some really interesting places. This one starts off kind of electronica. The vocal spoken word stuff comes back in, which, as you know, I'm not a big fan of. But then as we approach the middle of the song, things ramp up. It becomes more full band-like. There's some rip-roaring kind of string synthy things going on over the top, making it very spacey, and it makes you kind of feel like you're floating. It's overall a great song with a lot of dynamics. Final track in the overview itself is called Permanence, which again is a great title because permanence is something that kind of, it's in a way, it's kind of a philosophical idea, right? Things are permanent, but other things aren't. Objects outlive us. We're not permanent. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here. And I'll probably do a video in the future on the meanings behind these titles and the lyrics when I actually find the time to do this. But I wanted to get this out within a week of the release because it's relevant. So Permanence is basically a symphonic vocal list as far as I could tell. I kind of don't remember exactly what I was hearing. But it's essentially just like a soundscape. It's very synth-based. It's very soft. It's a great way for the album to go out. So let's get down to the absolute review of the overview here. How do I feel about it? When I first heard Objects Outlive Us, I was instantly sold. And then when I heard the overview, it was like a completely different album or a completely different artist. Like, I felt so much connection to the past with Objects Outlive Us. There were so many callbacks and so much familiarity with what Steven's done already. All the stuff I loved the most was like regurgitated in a new form into Objects Outlive Us. But the overview itself is a little bit more experimental. There's a little bit more electronica in it. The spoken word, I really don't care for. I know what he's going for. I think it was just a little bit overkill. It could have been much less of that. And overall, I am extremely happy with this album. Steven Wilson has been killing it in the past 5 years. You know, he put out The Future Bites, which is not my favorite, but there are some good tracks. Porcupine Tree's album came out in 2022. That is one of my favorite Porcupine Tree albums. Then you had Harmony Codex in 23, and you got this in 25. The guy just never stops. He's just a wealth of creative flow, and I absolutely love this album. And that's it. All right, I hope this wasn't too long for you guys. I tried to make it as succinct as possible. If you're still here, please let me know you're still here, because you are a true fan of, I guess, Steven Wilson, and you must like watching me pontificate for over 15 minutes. So again, thank you for being here. Hit like and subscribe if it applies to you, and we'll see you next time.